I just watched the UFC 25th anniversary press conference where at the beginning, Dana White brought out Khabib the Eagle Nurmagomedov and his new opponent, Raging Al Iaquinta, so where he announced that they're fighting, and in that announcement, he said that despite what the commission has to say about it, if Iaquinta defeats Nurmagomedov, he will view Iaquinta as the true 155-pound champion of the world. He said that after the fight happens, if Iaquinta was to get the victory, they'll have some hoops to jump through and they'll deal with that stuff later. But if Raging Al does get this victory, Dana White said that they will view him as the 155-pound champion. Now, I don't have the odds in front of me as of yet. I should have done that before I started the stream. But you have to imagine that Raging Al is coming into this fight as a hefty favorite. I have the odds now. Khabib is minus 470, and the comeback on Raging Al is plus 375. So he is a hefty underdog, and I don't think that we're going to talk about Raging Al actually getting this victory. I don't know how he's going to do against the pressure wrestling style, that sambo background of Nurmagomedov on just one day's notice without training for a grappler, because you have to keep in mind that Raging Al was supposed to fight the Irish Dragon Paul Felder tomorrow, who Paul Felder is known for his kickboxing style. Now he's got this wrestler in front of him. How is he going to do against him on short notice? I don't think that we're going to pick Raging Al to get the victory. But it is interesting that even though Iaquinta officially weighed in at 155.2, which would make him ineligible for a title, that Dana White has said that he will view Raging Al as the champion. And I heard rumblings earlier today that if Raging Al does win, he will be treated as the champion with all of the benefits that come from being a champion. And no matter if he gets a belt around his waist at the end of this, that he will definitely fight the next person for the belt. So that's pretty sweet for Raging Al. Another really, really cool thing is that 11 years ago tomorrow, so on April the 7th of 2007, George Rush St. Pierre was upset by Al Iaquinta's coach, Matt Serra. So let's talk about this press conference. Let's talk about everything that we need to unpack from today. And you guys are my co-host. Rob is here as usual. What up, Rob? I appreciate you for being here. And Break Driggers is also here as well. We will be doing the pre-fight show tomorrow for UFC 223, where we're going to go over the 9 fights that are left on this card after the Conor McGregor debacle, giving each one a grade from 1 to 5. But for tonight, I just want to drink a beer and hang out with you guys because there is a lot to unpack from what has gone on in the past 24 hours. 6 days ago, Tony Ferguson pulled out. He tripped over a wire on the set of an embedded episode that they usually do leading up to UFC events. So that started this chain of events. And then yesterday, Conor McGregor went on a McMelee, a riot-starting weirdness. And then culminating in today, Max Holloway, who came in to replace Tony Ferguson 6 days ago, he was deemed unfit to compete medically by the New York Athletic Commission. So he was pulled. The UFC quickly tried to replace him in this main event to keep Khabib on this card, to keep a lightweight title fight on the card. First, they tried Anthony Pettis. He weighed in, even though his fight was pulled with Michael Chiesa, because Michael Chiesa sustained a cut to his face from Conor McGregor throwing a fucking dolly through the window of a bus. So then Anthony Pettis was left without an opponent, and he was not on the card anymore, right? So then he was still trying to make weight. The UFC brought him in, had him try to make weight. He weighed in at 155.2, so not eligible for the title fight again. We thought that he had 2 hours to try again, because in New York, title fights say that even though the rest of the fights, you only get one chance to weigh in, title fights in New York apparently get an extra 2-hour window to cut the rest of the weight that they might have missed on the first try. He was trying to come back to weigh in at that 155-pound mark, and he did not get the opportunity because the New York Athletic Commission literally took the fucking scale. Then they might have tried to be, the The UFC might have tried to keep that fight, but Anthony Pettis wanted a pay increase that the UFC countered with more money than he was originally scheduled to make against Michael Chiesa, but less money than Pettis wanted, and Pettis turned that down. Next, they turned their focus to Raging Al, which I mentioned already that Raging Al weighed in at 155.2, but he is the hometown guy, and the commission even weighed his motherfucking underwear, and it weighed 0.2 pounds. So truly, if he would have weighed in naked the first time, he would have been on championship weight, and they got a deal done, Iaquinta and the UFC, to get Iaquinta in there tomorrow night to main event UFC 223 ahead of Thug Rose Namajunas defending her belt against Ioane and Jacek in the main event here. It is for the lightweight title. As I mentioned, Dana White says the title is on the line for both of them, even though the New York Athletic Commission does not agree. Back to the comments. Sorry, my dudes. Blake Driggers, I think Max could have won, though. It was an interesting stylistic matchup for him, that's for sure. He did have a noticeable limp on the video of him getting off the plane 6 days ago. So he still has that ankle injury that kept him from fighting Frankie Edgar, which is why Brian Ortega came in, beat Frankie Edgar, and yada yada. Also, he was obviously having a difficult weight cut if he was deemed medically unfit. So those two factors combined, I would have picked Khabib. He did have a good chance, though. I understand your point, Blake. Rob Amon says, reschedule Khabib for another card against Nate Diaz. We don't need to. He's going to fight tomorrow against Iaquinta. I do think that Khabib will win that fight, and then after that, we could either try to do the Tony Ferguson thing again. Perhaps we could give Dustin Poirier a title shot if he were to get past... What the fuck's that guy's name? Justin Gaethje. Why did I sorry, I messed that up a little bit, guys. Dean Martson, thanks for being here, my dude. Appreciate it. I can't wait to see how he will be sued for, how much he will be sued for. Well, we know that Max Holloway is a tall dude, but Ferguson, no, not Ferguson, Khabib is a thick dude, right? So Khabib's not the tallest guy in the world, but he's very muscle dense. He's thicker than Holloway. Holloway's a beanpole style. So we also need to talk about what's happened with Conor McGregor. But before we do that, let me talk to you about Raging Al, because I saw, like, legitimate, these aren't jokes, these weren't trolls. I saw on my Facebook page there were some people saying, who is Raging Al Iaquinta? However you pronounce his name, I apologize for getting it wrong a whole bunch of times. This is a guy that does not fight very often because he's been in contract negotiations with the UFC frequently over the past few years. He has not lost since 2014, May of 2014, so basically 4 years ago. But in that time, he's only had 5 fights. 4 of those, though, are via KO or TKO. He's coming off of an April 22nd of 2017 first-round finish of Diego Sanchez. He does have a win against Jorge Gamebred Masvidal, which was quite controversial, but provided us with one of the best post-fight interviews. It was actually cringeworthy at the time. It was weird, but in hindsight was really interesting. The crowd was booing Raging Al, and he said, "Oh, boo me? Boo you, fuck you, come here and fight me," but with his way better Long Island accent. And it was just, I can't recollect exactly how it went down. I'll try to find you a clip. It was really, really cool. I like Raging Al's personality. I like that he's one of the only people in UFC history who have fought back against a shitty contract, and the UFC was like, okay, because I believe it was a tough contract. I mean, like the Ultimate Fighter contract, something like that. Anyway, he was only making like $26,000 to show, $26,000 to win, or something like that. And so he said, fuck you, I'm not fighting until you renegotiate my contract. I believe he got a new contract to fight Diego Sanchez. KO in the first round. Did not get a performance bonus, though. Did he not get a performance bonus for that? He did not. So that kind of fucking sucks. But Iaquinta is a guy who has a boxing background. He's got really powerful hands. I mean, he trains under Sarah Longo, Matt Serra, former welterweight champion of the world, and he also trains with former middleweight champion Chris, the All-American Weidman. He comes from a pretty good camp. He's got a solid background. He also has a degree, an associate's degree from Nassau Community College. Anyway, currently he has 3 listings because he's a realtor. He is legitimately a realtor, and he has 3 listings currently right now. And tomorrow night he is fighting for a title. Back to the comments. Sorry for ignoring you guys. I think he will gas out. It sucks he fought. Yeah, that sucks he fought hard. Nope. McGregor gone Hollywood crazy. I don't know what else to say about Iaquinta. He does have a decent jiu-jitsu. He's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu under Matt Serra. If you've ever seen Matt Serra do jiu-jitsu, the guy is as wide as he is tall, but he's flowy as fuck when he's in that grappling department. It's fun to watch him do some grappling exchanges, basically on Dana White Looking for a Fight, a YouTube series. But it's really interesting. So Al Iaquinta is a purple belt under Matt Serra. That's some pretty big things right there. I like his... Holy shit. Al Iaquinta had a 14-0 amateur record before turning pro. That's fucking crazy. And about half of his wins are via KO or TKO. That's pretty fun as well. Again, will he win against Nurmagomedov? I don't believe so. But I think that it's worth noting. And if you don't know Iaquinta, tune in tomorrow night, at least into a stream that you can find. And I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised with how much resistance he will give Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now, you guys want to talk about Conor McGregor. John Raff says McGregor has gone Hollywood crazy. Blake Driggers counters with and Burger King crazy. Rob Amon wants to talk about the co-main event of UFC 223, but first let's get to the notorious Conor McGregor. We'll come back a little bit to Khabib Nurmagomedov. So, I believe it was 2 days ago now, Wednesday, Khabib and Artem Lobov. Artem Lobov is Conor McGregor's little buddy. He was scheduled to fight Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres on this card. They met, Nurmagomedov and Lobov met in the lobby of the hotel, and evidently Lobov said something that Khabib took as disrespectful, and Khabib made sure that he knew that he was being disrespectful and who he was talking to, and Khabib actually slapped Artem Lobov. Conor McGregor was scheduled to come to Brooklyn, New York tonight, Friday night, but instead he came to Brooklyn yesterday, Thursday, with a bunch, like people say, like 30 other Irishmen. I don't know how many people were actually with him, but they ran into the Barclays Center in Brooklyn and caused a little bit of a riot. I have some friends, internet friends, that were there on the scene. They said that they saw Conor literally run past them, and they had some cell phone footage of Conor doing that. Conor ran past them. He first tried to grab a barricade, and him and his cronies were throwing stuff at this bus that were housing the Red Corner fighters, and they were going to be driving them back to the hotel. And Conor first tried to throw a barricade, not strong enough to throw a barricade. Okay. And then he threw a motherfucking two-wheel cart or a hand truck or a dolly, whatever you want to call it, through the goddamn window of this bus. It cut Michael Chiesa's face. It got into Ray Borg's eye, and he was having eye trouble. So both Ray Borg versus Brandon Moreno and Michael Chiesa versus Anthony Showtime Pettis were pulled from this card. Other fighters that were affected was evidently Thug Rose Namajunas was emotionally hurt by this event, and she got a different ride back to the hotel that wasn't the bus. And she's doing fine now. But what the fuck was Conor McGregor thinking? I saw a lot of people that said that they were backing Conor McGregor on this because Khabib tried to bitch McGregor's buddy while McGregor wasn't there, so McGregor had the right to retaliate. Nate Diaz even tweeted that Conor McGregor had the right to retaliate because Khabib tried to bitch his boy. That's all well and good. That's fine. There were many other opportunities to get in Khabib's face, to talk to him mano a mano. Did you need to throw a fucking two-wheel cart or a dolly or a hand truck through the window of a bus to get your point across to Khabib that you don't fuck with my boy? Absolutely not. I understand Conor protecting his boy, having his boy's back, his homie. But that is just, it's negligent. Dana White said it's horrendous, it's grotesque. I wouldn't go that far, but that's pretty fucking stupid. Because you injured two people that were not involved in the altercation to begin with by your uninhibited craziness. And then Dana White said he talked to Conor McGregor after that, and Conor was not apologetic. Then today, Conor was in jail, and he was seen with the same clothes that he had on yesterday. He had arraignment, and one of his cronies, too, had an arraignment. I can't remember his name, guys, because I didn't... Honestly, dudes, I did not prepare to do this stream. My wife is at an event, and I'm just like, fuck it. I'm going to talk to the dudes about what's been going on these last 2 days. So I didn't prepare myself. I was trying to keep up on the goings-on, redundant, in the mixed martial arts in the UFC 223 and the Conor McGregor nonsense while I was at my day job. So Conor was at arraignment today. Bail was set to $50,000 for him and $25,000 for his buddy. There was a protection order put on for McGregor on Chiesa and Borg because they were injured in this altercation. It's being called assault. And so McGregor has basically a restraining order for Michael Chiesa. He can't come near them or he can get rearrested. Dylan Dennis, McGregor's jiu-jitsu coach and soon-to-be Bellator fighter, bailed them out, and they were allowed to fly back to Ireland. There was not anything put on their visas, so they could not go back home. Their next appearance is scheduled for June the 4th, 2018, I believe. June something 2018. Let me check my messages. Oh, there's too many of them. Sometime in June, they are scheduled to come back for court, where they will be charged and sentenced, or I think they'll have to plead their guiltiness. Anyway, so that is some wild fucking shit. So because of Conor McGregor's antics, I said we lost Chiesa versus Pettis, which then brought Pettis into trying to fight for the main event, and we lost Borg versus Moreno, and we also lost Lobov versus Caceres because Lobov was involved in this altercation. So we lost 3 fights there, and then we lost Paul Felder versus Al Iaquinta because obviously Raging Al is now fighting in the main event, and a lot of people were asking why didn't Paul Felder drop down and fight Anthony Showtime Pettis. It's because those two both train at Rufus Sport under Duke Rufus, so they're teammates, they're friends. They're obviously not going to fight each other on one day's notice for our pleasure. So we are down 4 fights. I believe 4 fights, right? Am I being mistaken? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyway, we have 4 fights tomorrow. Main event, obviously, Nurmagomedov versus Raging Al. Co-main event, Thug Rose Namajunas versus Ioane and Jacek. Renato Moicano versus Calvin Kattar. Zabit Magomed Sharapov versus Kyle Bochniak was the curtain jerker of the night. Now it is on the pay-per-view portion. Joe Lozon versus Chris Grutzmacher was on the preliminary card on Fox Sports 1. They're now on the main card. Karolina Kowalkiewicz still is in the main event of the Fox Sports 1 prelim portion opposite of Felice Herrig. Sorry, guys. I've been rambling a little bit. I'll get back to your guys' questions. I'm sure there's going to be questions. Did I mention everything about Conor McGregor that needed to be mentioned? Dana White has said that he doesn't want to do business with him anymore, but somebody asked him, point blank, is he fired? And he's like, well, no. Obviously, the UFC is not going to get rid of Conor McGregor because of this. So he's going to get a misdemeanor assault charge on him. I think he's getting charged with felony. Obviously, they're going to plea that shit down to a misdemeanor felony. And you're not going to get rid of Conor McGregor because of something like this. He's the biggest draw in mixed martial fucking arts, right? He could be a huge draw in boxing as well. You're not just going to cut him loose from his contract so he could go to someplace like Bellator. They'd be licking their fucking chops to get him over into their organization or ONE FC or anything like that. So Conor McGregor is going to be in the UFC. He's probably still going to fight. And despite what Dana White said about how upset he is with the situation, he's still under contract with the UFC, and he's still probably going to fight in that organization. Ray Amon says Conor should have an indefinite suspension by the Athletic Commission. The Athletic Commission wasn't sanctioning him this weekend. He was not scheduled to fight. This is basically a criminal case. It's not an athletic case. It's a criminal case, and I don't think that that's going to affect Conor McGregor at all. I think they should make him fight Habib for punishment, says Blake Driggers. That'd be hilarious. Cleophas McDonald, that's the point. He could care less if he comes back to the States. I believe he cares about coming back to the States. But also, I just learned from a police officer at my job recently, if it's a misdemeanor, if Conor does get it down to a misdemeanor, and he were to serve, he could flee. And then a misdemeanor is 1 year. That there is, what is it called? Tell me, guys. After 1 year, they can no longer get him in trouble for it, basically. They're like, well, you evaded us for this long. Cheers to you, my dude. Blake Driggers, why was Max cut? Max wasn't cut. Max was not allowed to make the weight today because when he got down to a certain weight, the athletic commission was monitoring his vital signs, probably his level of hydration, perhaps his electrolytes in his fluid. Maybe they took a blood sample and it was not looking good with too much weight left to cut, and they just put a nix on the weight cut and deemed him medically unfit to fight. So some of us are upset that he was not allowed to make the weight. My wife was even like, why didn't they let him keep trying to make the weight? Because it's unsafe, my dudes. He might have came in 6 days ago weighing 170 something pounds, and you wanted him to cut 20-ish pounds on 6 days. It's not healthy. I'm glad it didn't happen. He clearly had an ankle injury when he arrived 6 days ago, or 5 days ago now, but you get the point. Statute of limitations. Thank you, John. And thank you, Rob Amon, which is also, he'd be granted amnesty. Conor McGregor. So, yeah, Max was not allowed to make the weight. I think that's a good call. Even though Nurmagomedov is not a powerful puncher, do you want to see the first death in the octagon to be the 145-pound champion? Now, I know that's extreme and that's unlikely, but I would way rather err on the side of caution. I think that Khabib would have beat Max Holloway anyway. Sure, it would have been an interesting match, and it would have been a reason for people to buy the pay-per-view, but would it have been that much more competitive than Iaquinta versus Khabib? Basically, we wanted Khabib to get in that octagon and have the chance for the belt. Did it really matter who the opponent was? I'd rather not risk. Obviously, fighters risk their health when they go in there to compete in mixed martial arts, face punching, prize fighting. But, you know, if he's having that tough of a weight cut, I'd rather minimize the chances of severe brain trauma as best that we can. That's just my take. That's just my off the collar take. But hopefully that explains something to you. Tamir Kisun says Khabib versus Tony is truly cursed. They've been trying to make this fight for either 3 or 4 years. I think it's 3 years, but 4 attempts have been made to make this fight, and it has yet to come to fruition. So Dana White the other day said that they're not going to try for a 5th time. I've made a rule set for being a fight fan, at least on Twitter. It's kind of like Fight Club. Rule number 1 of being a fight fan is you do not trust Dana White. Rule number 2 of being a fight fan is you do not trust Dana White. Rule number 3 is you don't tag the fighters on social media. And I'll explain myself on this because this gets people hung up a little bit. Why am I not allowed to tag fighters on social media? You are if you're congratulating them, asking them an honest question that is not demeaning or rude. But if you want to, if you and I are having a conversation about who's going to win a fight, if you tag one of the fighters that we are talking about, they can then see the entire thread that we've been talking to each other about that fight. And they're going to see, let's say I'm picking against Iaquinta, right? And we're having this discussion. The thread is 20 tweets deep, and you decide to tag him. He can see then every tweet that I said about him in a negative fashion, and he thinks that I'm being an asshole. I'm not being an asshole. I'm just picking Nurmagomedov. So we need to have a conversation without tagging the fighters. And then if you're just being one of those guys that wants to like bash a fighter and you're tagging them, unfucking cool. Don't do that. Why? Why do that? Like we have the Fifth Amendment right to, not the Fifth Amendment. We have the freedom of speech. Which amendment is that? We have the freedom of speech to say whatever we want, especially on Twitter. But when you're tagging a fighter, it's classless if you're saying something negative. So rule number 3, Don't tag the fighters. Any other questions, my dudes? We can do this as long as you would like. Dean Martson. I haven't seen you here before, Dean. Thanks for hanging out. Rob says, don't be a troll. Don't be a troll. Yeah, Second Amendment. My bad. Oh, First Amendment. First Amendment. Got it, guys. You know what's... You're going to laugh at me and think that I'm an idiot. I have a degree in broadcast journalism. Couldn't remember which amendment it was. Yeah. So, whoops. Let me check the Twitter machine, see if there's anything that's happening lately. Dana White said in an interview today that Embedded has the long footage of Conor McGregor's riot, says it should be released soon. Very interesting. So that's interesting. And also, the next thing I saw, why I paused for a second there, is John Jones currently beefing with Tyson Griffin, former UFC fighter. That's weird. Man, that's weird. Let me ask you about this, my dudes. Am I freezing on the screen every once in a while? I'm freezing on my screen. It says I have green health of the stream. I might need to close some windows. Sorry, my dudes. What else do we need to go over? I just wanted to get like some talk out about what has happened the past couple of days. Why wasn't Paul Felder offered the title shot against Khabib? Because Paul Felder did come in on weight at 155 pounds exactly. Why wasn't he granted this opportunity? The New York Athletic Commission said that he was not allowed to fight Nurmagomedov on such short notice, or at all. We don't really know, because he wasn't in the rankings. And Nurmagomedov is like number 2 in the rankings, the official UFC rankings, and Felder was not in them. So that's why the Athletic Commission from New York would not allow that to happen, which is complete and utter bullshit, because the UFC.com rankings are arbitrary at best. And if you look at Tapology.com, Nurmagomedov is 3 and Felder was 15. I heard there was another website that had Nurmagomedov as 3 and Felder at 9. So what the fuck? And my friend Dan Tom from MMAJunkie.com, he tweeted, so they won't allow Nurmagomedov to fight basically the number 16 lightweight in the world on one day's notice, but they will let a featherweight who has an ankle injury fight him on 6 days' notice. Complete and utter bullshit, New York Athletic Commission. What the fuck? That's the what the fuck of the weekend so far, is that right there. Hashtag let some anger out, says Ralph Vargas. Ralph Vargas just got into the street fight with a black dude, no joke, and broke my hand. Why does it matter that he's a black dude, Ralph? Got in a fight with a dude. What's up, Blumpkin Chimichanga? What up, my dude? Tamir Kisun. With Francis, they hyped him like crazy. UFC 220, UFC 221, Yoel had to come in. UFC 222, Max pulled out. Now UFC 223, madness. This is like putting a microscope on mixed martial arts, right? One of my favorite things about mixed martial arts, the UFC, I like all mixed martial arts, but the UFC is mostly what I watch because it's so oversaturated. You know, there's a card every Saturday. I have to spend some time with my wife and with my friends and stuff as well. But anyway, my point is, mixed martial arts is so goddamn unpredictable. Like Holly Holm knocking out Ronda Rousey as an enormous underdog. TJ Dillashaw coming in on super short notice and knocking out Renan Barão. The fight could end at a moment's notice. The fights themselves are completely unpredictable, and that often spills over into everything else to deal with mixed martial arts. It is completely unpredictable. Weird fucking things happen. Like Matt Failer retweeted me quoting Dana White tonight that the New York Athletic Commission literally weighed Al Iaquinta's underwear today to see how much it weighed. And if he would have weighed in naked, if he would have made the 155-pound title fight limit. It weighed 0.2 pounds. What the fuck? Mixed martial arts is weird. It's unpredictable. And that's one of the things that makes it so fucking great. Today has been a pain in my ass a little bit because, well, this whole week has been a pain in my ass. I made my top 3 fights to watch video on Saturday of last week. I was getting ready to publish it on Sunday. Tony Ferguson pulled out with an injury. Had to redo my top 3 list for this event. Also, my beer pairing video, I made that motherfucker on Saturday as well. Had to redo it because Tony Ferguson pulled out. Then, last night, I made my top 3 video again because I was a little bit behind schedule. And it included Lobov versus Caceres. It included Felder versus Iaquinta. It included Nurmagomedov versus Max Holloway. All of them are fucking gone. If you're wondering, those were 3 fights, and I said my top 3. I actually did a top 4. You get the point here. But it's a pain in the ass because I had to follow this nonsense. I had to make new videos. My videos are now irrelevant and everything. But at the same time well, one, I wouldn't be able to make this video and talk to you guys right now if some crazy shit hadn't have happened. I wouldn't have had the most Twitter interactions I've had in the history of my Twitter account had today not happened. I wouldn't have been able to increase the MMA Mania Instagram follower count by like 100 followers in the past 2 days because of this fucking nonsense. If this, if it had not have happened. So, got to take the good with the bad. But that's just a little rant. I just went off on a spiel there. Sorry, dudes. I'm annoyed by today's happenings, but I'm actually more enthusiastic about the fact that they happened because honestly, they were great for clicks. Today was great for clicks. Anybody in the mixed martial arts journalism game, website thing, content creator, if they would tell you that today was not fucking fantastic for clicks, they're a liar. So today was fantastic for MMA journalism, for MMA news, websites, yada, yada, yada. It's been fantastic. Tamir Kissoon, best sport? Yeah, roller coaster of emotions, man. It's one of the best things. I hope the UFC comes to San Francisco next year and the Chase Center opens. Ralph Vargas apologizes for calling the dude black. I don't know. I was just being a social justice warrior a little bit, Ralph. Messed up Blake Drigger's bets. John Ralph, color doesn't matter until you get a flat tire in the wrong part of town. Or if you're in jail. Ugh. Choices must be made, says Dean Martson. Tamir Kissoon says, I got paid good money to see them here. Just wish this didn't happen in my town. Worth Tony, we need that fight. The fight card's still going to be good, guys. And one thing that mixed martial arts is awesome because you pay, like, let's say you paying to go to a fight card. You pay $65 to get in. Like if it's Legacy Fighting Alliance or whatever. You get to see 12 fights, and it takes it's a long event. $65 actually goes a long way at those. But at the same time, being a spectator from my house and being the person that I am who has to make these videos for them, and I have to cover them on Twitter, and I have to spend my entire fucking Saturday covering a fight card, I'm stoked to have a 9-fight card. I love the Tuesday Night Contender Series because it was like 5 fights. Pacing was awesome, just bing, bang, bang, next. So I have to use less of my day tomorrow to cover this fight card, and I'm pretty fucking stoked about it. One reason, I'm actually going to a brewery in bumfuck Egypt, Nebraska tomorrow morning to get a limited release beer that they're only releasing at the brewery tomorrow morning at 10. And so I'm going to do some day drinking. I'll have enough time to sober up a little bit, come back, and do my pre-fight video for UFC 223, which again we'll be doing our the top, our ratings 1 to 5 for each fight on the card. The UFC 2018 lull continues. Last time the UFC came here to Brooklyn, the card wasn't as great as this one by far, man. UFC 208. Hey, if you guys haven't already, thumb this video up I think that would help me out, and subscribe to the channel, as you can see above my head here, which I keep popping into. My goal is 4,000 subscribers. I wanted to get there by the beginning of May. I'll set the goal to by the end of May. I think that we can get there. It's gonna be awesome, Dean. I'm going with my brother. I've drank just a bit, guys, so I'm gonna get like personal with you for a second, if that's okay. I only have like 3 really good friends, and I think that people my age start to get just 3 great friends. You know, I'd rather have 3 great friends than a bunch of acquaintances, right? So I was seeing in my mind who would want to go with me to this brewery tomorrow. I thought I'll just call my brother up and see what he's up to, and I just said, he's like, hello. Hey, what's up, man? What are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm watching the national championship basketball game. I'm like, oh, shoot, sorry that I'm interrupting. I don't know, what's up? I said, do you want to go to Ord with me on Saturday? He's like, sounds fine. You don't want to know what we're going for? He's like, oh, I'm not doing anything. I'll hang out with you. All right, we're going to go drink some beer. He's like, oh, fucking great. Sounds good. But, you know, conversation went on. But my point is, it was awesome because I asked him to hang out. He didn't say, like, what's it for? Why do you want to go to that town and fucking BFE? He's just like, yep, let's do it. Cheers, my dude. And that's the kind of friend that I feel like every person needs in life. One friend that you call him up, want to hang out, we're going to this weird fucking town, done. Sorry, back to fights. Stop getting real with you guys for a sec. Tamir Kisun. Yeah, like UFC 221 didn't look that great card on paper. However, it turned out to be batshit crazy amazing. Ralph Vargas. My son is stationed out there in Nebraska. Oh, where, Ralph? Blake Driggers. Real people have less friends. I can relate. Yeah. Albu's the king. I wonder how Khabib feels after this #1 bullshit. Well, if you just watch, like I came out of this stream after the UFC 25th anniversary press conference, and somebody in the crowd, I think it was actually Ariel Helwani, was like, why did you take this fight on short notice? It's pretty dangerous. And Khabib said, I want to be the champion. I want to be the lightweight champion of the world in the UFC. If I cannot beat Paul Felder, Iaquinta, or Anthony Pettis, then I can't be the champion. So why not fight those guys on short notice? And actually, the fight with Iaquinta, it bodes better for Khabib than it does for Iaquinta, because Iaquinta was scheduled to fight a kickboxer, a guy who's mostly known for his stand-up and striking ability, and Paul Felder. Now he has to fight arguably the best grappler in UFC history, the best like ground and pound control artist, transition guy in UFC history. Khabib, with his takedowns, with his transitions, with his ground control, is fucking unstoppable nearly. And Paul Felder has to transition from fighting a striker to this amazing grappler on 1 day short notice. Where Khabib, it does not matter what type of opponent he has. It could be a striker, it could be a dancer, it could be a flyer, it could be a fucking Bruce Springsteen. Khabib's gonna come in there, take them down, and Khabib smash their asses. So Khabib does not have to change his game plan no matter who he faces, and Iaquinta actually has to change it up a little bit. So in short, Khabib said, if I can't beat those 3 dudes, I can't be the champion, and it doesn't fucking matter. I'm going to do my thing, my dudes, and Khabib smash. I elaborated a bit. It was paraphrasing, and it might not even be truly accurate, but that's the gist of what he said. Well, happy birthday to Ralph Vargas. It must be Ralph Vargas Sr. Happy birthday to Ralph Vargas. 78 tomorrow. Wow. Cheers, Ralph. Khabib and Fedor Emelianenko are very similar, says Dean Martson, in that they don't care what their opponent's going to do. If you listen to Heavy Hands with Dr. Patrick Wyman and Conor Rebush, I think it was Patrick said that in interviews, a fighter will always say that they are worried about what they're going to do, like themselves, and not what their opponent's going to do every single time you interview them. But that's not the case. Fighters need to game plan for their opponents. Otherwise, they're not setting themselves up for victory. Really, truly, that's how it is. But Khabib he's going to do the same thing no matter what. He's 25-0, and have you noticed him change game plan ever? No, he's going to move fucking forward as much as can. He's going to flail some like winging hooks, uppercuts perhaps, get in on those hips, push you to the fence, takedown. Khabib is, you know, Damian Maia is a very singular approached fighter, or similar. He approaches the game in a singular fashion. He's not. People approach him differently, but Damian Maia is similar to Khabib, but Khabib he's better with his takedowns than Maia, and Khabib's a young guy. He's 29 years old. Khabib's basically my age. I'll be 29 this month. I'm 28 right now. Khabib's basically my age, which is crazy to me that somebody can be 5'10", 155 pounds. It's bonkers. Tamir Kisun, his manager, is super smart. He was on MMA Junkie and said he made this deal. Make sure they don't strip Conor until they fight and make Tony champ like they did with GSP and Whitaker, just in case Tony gets hurt. Oh, Blake Drigger said Fedor and Khabib both maintain composure to keep calm. Albu's the king. Khabib versus Ben Askren or GSP would be so awesome. I'm going to focus on this comment for a second. Thank you for it, Albos. I get sometimes accused of not liking grappling. I don't like wall install and I don't like lay and pray, but I love grappling. When two guys are on the ground, they're actually looking for submissions. They're actually looking to better their position, flow, move, improve, and not just hold their opponent on the ground. You gotta love watching that. Both Khabib and Askren, like you said, are that way. George St. Pierre in the past was a little bit of not lay and pray, but he did like to top control his opponents without looking for a finish. But Khabib is looking for a finish. He's actually looking to do that gosh darn damage. I would like those matchups simply on a fun grappling stylistic matchup. In the history of the UFC, they always wanted to do, oh, it's a striker versus a grappler. Who's gonna win? And a lot of the time, it was either like the striker just tooling on the grappler because the grappler couldn't grapple, or the grappler holding the striker on the ground. But nowadays, in the modern mixed martial arts and modern UFC, if we got ground fighting is way more exciting than it ever has been. In the past, Gracie was tooling on fools that had no idea what they were doing on the ground, right? But now, even a striker like Donald Cerrone is known as a striker, right? He's Muay Thai kickboxing, but he's got really good jiu-jitsu as well. So to watch like anybody play out on the ground, as long as it's just not stalling the action, it's really fun to watch. Yeah, Ali Abdelaziz is Khabib's manager. Blake Driggers, he's the real champ. Fuck that #1 bullshit. McGregor is definitely beatable. Anybody is beatable. The question is, can McGregor land that left-hand shot before Khabib gets in on the hips and gets the fight to the ground? If Nurmagomedov gets the fight to the ground, you have to believe that he's, you know, early especially, he's going to win the fight because McGregor's going to gas out quickly from trying to get up off the bottom, sustaining that damage that Khabib would put on him if he gets that crucifix mount or controls the wrist and just almost referee's position punches him in the face. But if McGregor can, I mean, Khabib comes in wild with his face wide open, and McGregor can land that left hand on anybody. It's an intriguing matchup, but it's not an intriguing matchup for who can win a 25-minute stylistic matchup, back and forth battle, chess match. It's who can win the first fucking 3 minutes of this thing. Conor McGregor's left hand or Khabib's takedown. You know what I'm saying? That's just how it is. I don't know. I don't think that we have too much else to discuss. We've been hanging out for 45 minutes about. I appreciate you guys for being here. Tomorrow I'll be back to do my pre-fight show where I'll need you guys to be my co-hosts. So have in mind a rating 1 to 5 for every single fight that's on tomorrow's card. Let's go over those fights so you can get ready and come back tomorrow 1 hour before the first fight. So the fights start at 7. No, they start at 7 my time. 8 p.m. Eastern is when the prelims start, which is crazy. 7 my time is when the prelims start. And I need you guys to be there ready with your ratings for Devin Brown Bear Clark versus Mike Rodriguez. Evan Dunham versus Olivier Aubin-Mercier. Beck Rawlings versus Ashley Evans Smith. Karolina Kovalkiewicz versus Felice Lil Bulldog Herrig. Joe J-Lo Lozon versus Chris Grits Grutzmacher. Zabit Magomed Sharapov versus Kyle Bochniak. Renato Moicano versus Calvin Cater. Thug Rose Namajunas versus Ioanni and Jacek. And Habib the Eagle Nurmagomedov versus Raging Al Iaquinta. So you need to be back tomorrow with your ratings, my dudes. Tomorrow I will be here at 7 Eastern, 6 Central, 5 Mountain, 4 Pacific time. I'll be right here to do the pre-fight show where I will have a spreadsheet. We'll go over each fight individually. I'll put down my rating 1 to 5 and your rating 1 to 5, the average of whoever comments, and then we'll average them out at the end, and we'll see how close we are at the end of the night with our prediction for the rating. Yeah, don't forget to hit that like button, peeps, says Blake Driggers. Thank you, my dude. Cali time, 4 p.m., I believe. Is 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific? I believe it is. I'm terrible with time zone stuff. Thanks, Dean, for adding me on Instagram. You know what, guys? I'm going to get out of here. Enjoy the rest of my Friday evening. I think, are there fights to watch? I don't know. Anyway, guys, I will see you tomorrow at 4 Eastern, 5 Mountain, 6 Central, and 7 Eastern time for the UFC 223 pre-fight show with you guys as my co-host. Until then, have a good night, my dudes. Namaste. Namaste. You guys are the best. Peace out, my friends.